Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Wealth Shepherd podcast. I'm Ed Gwinnell with Gwinnell Wealth Management. Today we've got a really important topic to talk about with you today, and we're going to go ahead and jump into this topic today that I think is really important. We're going to call this the 7 steps to create a 10 years from now retirement plan. So this is from an Investopedia article, and we're going to make reference to a few different things here. This topic is so important because oftentimes when I do, say, a retirement seminar or I meet with people, they'll often say to me, Ed, I'm not retired yet. I'll call you when I retire. And sometimes that just might be too late. So it's never too early to plan. And one of the things that's really important for people to understand is as you go through your life cycle, if you will, you graduate college, you get married, you start your career, you purchase a home, you have a family, all these things happen in life. And then all of a sudden you're staring down the barrel of retirement and you're thinking, uh-oh, have I done enough? So we're going to talk a lot about that today, what you can do to plan for retirement, whether you're 5, 7, or 10 years out from retirement. As you listen to the show today, of course, if you'd like to get more information during our show, you can always call my office at 916-359-2750. You can always visit our website. It's edgwealth.com, as in my name, Ed Gwinnell, edgwealth.com. And you could just check out our past podcasts under the resources tab. You can listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and you can also watch the podcast on our YouTube channel. So, one of the biggest financial challenges out there isn't really the stock market or inflation. It's something a lot closer to home, actually saving for retirement. And I've always said that, it's the easy part's making money. The hard part is saving money because all of these things happen in life. And let's be honest here, wages have not kept up with inflation. So it's becoming even harder to save for retirement. So I always tell people I respect the work it takes to earn the money, but I respect more the work it takes to save that money. And as you get closer to that retirement window, it starts to get a little scary. So we're going to try to address some of these issues for you today. And, some people might still have a pension to fall back on, but for most people, their safety net is going to be what they've saved for retirement. And so we're going to jump into this topic here. And as always, I have my co-host with us, Jaclyn. Jaclyn, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Ed. It's great to be here. I am excited about this topic. But before we get into that, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I was in San Diego the last time we recorded a couple weeks ago, and now we're back home in the office here in Sacramento. And, things are good. Enjoying summer. It's starting to get really hot here in Sacramento. So I'm looking forward to going back to San Diego to cool off soon.
What is the difference typically? Like I don't know, weather or degrees or,
Yeah, so Sacramento, we're at the base of the Sierra foothills, but we are in a valley, and so it gets really hot and dry here. So we could get temperatures, into August we could get as much as 108, 110 sometimes, not for very long. We get about 30 to 35 days a year over 100,
okay.
but it does get hot and dry. And then in San Diego, much more mild. You're on the ocean, you get the ocean breeze. Your typical, weather range is going to be anywhere from the coldest part 62 to about 86, 87 on the coast. As you go inland, of course, it gets a lot hotter in the deserts, but the coast is nice. And it's so funny when I visit there and, it's going to be 86 and people say, oh my God, we're having a heat wave here. Coming from Sacramento, I'm just thinking, you got it good.
Yes. Well, we get the humidity here in
Right.
Minnesota. So, we don't necessarily get the hot temperatures, but it's been hanging around that 90-95 mark
Oh boy.
here with the humidity. So, I mean, I have one of my best friends came from Arizona and she
Yeah.
says it's pretty comparable to the, 110 that she's getting because she's like, here it's the humidity that really
Yeah.
kills you.
Yeah. I'll
So,
trade I'll trade the dry heat for that humidity anytime. And so hey, we've got a great topic to talk about today. And
yeah.
let's
Yeah,
jump in.
I'm excited about this one. So I know you talked about we're going to be going through 7 steps today, and
Yes.
you think about kind of that decade long, you have a decade until you retire, and it's, in other words, sometimes crunch time.
It is.
So Ed, what do we start with here?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, when I do seminars, dinner seminars here, I'll often get people to say, I'm not retired yet. So I'll call you when I'm retired. It's like, that might be too late. So the first thing you need to do, and I have a report, it's actually a printout that I send to people. It's a retirement planning checklist, and I'll make it available on my website so people can download it. But, step one, you have to really start with assess where you are, right? Check out your total retirement savings, exclude the emergency funds. You should always have an emergency bucket. And this will help you get a clear picture of your finances. Okay. Now, I kind of tend to lean towards a little more in cash than most advisors because I like for people to have the ability to take care of emergencies without having to sell assets to generate cash. Okay. So aside from that, take a look at where you are. Look at your current retirement savings, how much you're contributing, if you have a company match or not, and just start to sort of do simple math, what we like to call guerrilla math, where you just calculate, if you continue down that road, how much will you be able to save by the time you retire? And most people look at their retirement age roughly about 65 or 67 because that gets them into the Medicare phase so that they don't have to cover their own health care, which is extremely, extremely expensive. So you want to calculate that, assess where you are, and just do the simple math first. Okay. If I'm contributing, $2,000 a month, that's $24,000 a year. My company is matching me, say $6,000. So that's $30,000 a year. Where will I end up at retirement? Okay. Then we can start to factor in rates of return and things like that. But that'll give you step one, assess where you are. Okay. That's
Yeah.
important.
And I think that sometimes is the hardest one because, I hear so often that people are scared to look at what they have, right? It's the
Right.
unknown. And they're like, I don't think I'm going to be happy with what I have, so I'm just not going to look and I'm going to ignore it.
Sure.
And so I think it is a great first step to just, open that door and say, hey, it is what it is. Let's just see what I have so we can work from there. It's the foundation.
100%. It's interesting. I read this statistic years ago that people spend more time planning for a vacation each year than they do on their own retirement planning. So if you think
Wow.
about that, it's one of those things that we put in the back of our mind until you're staring down the barrel of retirement. So,
Yes.
start with step one, assess where you are.
How about step number 2?
Yeah. So this part is really important, right? As you leave the workforce, now you have to figure, how am I going to pay for things? What are my income sources? So step two, identify all of your income sources. You want to look at your savings, your Social Security, if you're still fortunate enough to have a pension, and possibly the potential for part-time work, right? You want to use your Social Security benefit estimator for realistic numbers. So you could go to ssa.gov, print your statement, or save it to your computer, but also use the calculator there to figure out where you're going to end up for Social Security. Social Security was created in 1935, right? FDR, he created it, was part of the New Deal. And what he said was, as long as I'm alive, you'll never pay taxes on Social Security. Okay. So Social Security was never really meant to be your main source of income in retirement. It was really there to supplement the last few years of your life. But the reality is, Social Security has become the foundation of most people's retirement plans. So use the benefit estimator, find out where you are, okay? And then identify your other income sources. Where are you going to have to pull money from? And when do you start to pull money from those different sources? Let's say, for example, you have your 401k, you have a Roth IRA, you have your traditional investment portfolio. In what order do you need to start pulling from those in order to not only cover your main expenses, but also enjoy the lifestyle that you want in retirement, right? Nobody wants to just go into retirement and not do anything. You want to still be able to enjoy the things that you enjoy the most, whether it's traveling, spending time with the kids, the grandkids, volunteering, what have you. And,
Well,
if you're still young and healthy enough, maybe you want to do something part-time. I have a lot of clients that get bored in retirement really fast
mhm.
and they go back to work part-time or they volunteer. And so Step number two, again, identify all of those income sources and see where you're going to be.
Yeah. Well, Ed, and you touched on it a little bit. So I'm excited to hear about step number three, which is kind of what do you want your retirement to look like, right?
Absolutely. Step number three, define your goals, right? We call this the bucket list. Get that bucket list going. Think about all the things that you want to do in retirement, things that are, what you envision for lifestyle, whether it's travel, RVing around the country, buying a boat in San Diego. This is really what's going to drive your budget. And then the other part is healthcare costs, right? Healthcare costs is so important because at today's rate, when you calculate premiums and copays through your retirement life cycle, you're going to spend about $165,000 on your healthcare. So you definitely want to factor in those healthcare costs. Okay. But, we have this goal pyramid that we use sometimes with clients where we start to write out on the pyramid what's the top thing that you want to do in retirement. Then we're going to work our way down and, realize that also as you get older, some of the things that you want to do, you're going to want to do earlier in retirement, where it could be things like international travel, right? That might be a little more difficult as you get older. So we move those things up on the bucket list. But I think when you create your vision of retirement, it helps you to sort of reverse engineer your way back into the income needs, assess where you are, and just really helps you to start to lay out a clear picture for yourself.
Yes. Well, and also, I mean, with your goals, kind of maybe sometimes comes with a target, and what that ultimate retirement age is. And I know that that
Yes,
leads us to number four, right? Step number
that's
four.
right. That's right. Step four is you want to set that target retirement age. So what's your goal? I always tell people there's two requirements to retire. One, when you had enough, and two, when you have enough. And
Mhm.
everybody's had enough, right? Everybody wants to get out of the workforce and start enjoying retirement. But the question, to answer if you have enough really comes to setting this retirement age, your target age. And this step, what you're going to want to do here is really try to balance your savings with how long you'll need it to last, right? And I always tell people, assume you're going to live to your full life expectancy and then some, because if you look at any metropolitan skyline, the biggest buildings are owned by pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies, and they can keep us alive a lot longer than we think we're going to live. So plan on it, right? And set that retirement age and plan to live in retirement for almost as long as your working years. And see how your savings is going to play out for you. Okay. So step four, set that target retirement age, make sure you balance your savings and determine how long you're going to need to make that money last.
Yeah, I like that because I like having a smart goal in mind. We talk about smart goals pretty often here, Ed.
Yeah,
Can you kind of explain maybe for our listeners what SMART goals are and why they exist?
sure. So, some of the things that I like to encourage clients to do that are planning before they retire is try to retire your debt at the same time you retire. So, smart planning is making sure that you're eliminating all that retail credit card debt and retiring that mortgage. There's two schools of thought when it comes to mortgages. One school of thought is never pay it off because you get the interest deduction.
Mhm.
Okay. But as you get late into your mortgage, you're paying all principal anyway. So if you could retire that mortgage at the same time as you retire, then you're going to eliminate that debt. You're going to have more positive cash flow. And that could go towards things like health insurance and possibly even long-term care planning.
Mhm. Well, I like that, and that's a great idea and plan. So now we've kind of gone through step 1 through 4 so far, which is
Yeah.
really, we're kind of starting with the foundation and assessing where you're at and kind of defining what your goals are. So what is step number 5?
I think this one's really important. It has to do with shortfalls, right? Confront any shortfalls.
Mm.
Okay. When you start those first four steps and you see that maybe you're still going to be a little behind on savings or income, you've got to start to figure out how you can increase your savings rates, maybe cut unnecessary spending, and make sure that you're automating your contributions. It's out of sight, out of mind.
Mhm.
And what I like to encourage people to do is, let's say that you get a raise. Maybe use half of that raise towards your contributions and then keep half that raised to help eliminate debt. That way, you're still increasing your savings rate and you're retiring that debt, which is really important. Be realistic as well. But one of the things is, I work with a health coach, and my health coach always tells me, when you have those shortfalls or those days where things didn't quite go right, they always say it's not about perfection, it's about consistency. So you want to have consistent progress. It's not about perfection, but be consistent. Things are going to happen, right? Retirement and life is not linear. Things are going to come up that we didn't expect, and you're going to have to maybe apply a little bit more resources towards, maybe sending the kids to college or taking care of something that happened at the house. Those things will happen. So it's just important to be consistent in the progress.
Yeah, I think the step number 5 sounds the hardest so far. Is
Yeah,
really, again, confronting that fear and maybe disappointment in yourself sometimes, but being able to really shift that mindset and say, you know, "This is what is going wrong, or this is what I'm maybe failing to do at this time, so let's
yeah,
switch it. Let's figure out a solution, and let's, you know, act on that solution now,
100%.
versus 5, 10 years from now."
Absolutely. There's strategies that we help our clients with to eliminate debt when it comes to being consistent. We want to have consistent progress on eliminating that debt. I'll share two easy strategies that you could use. So you take let's say that your minimum payment on your credit card is $200. Okay.
Mhm.
Rather than paying the $200 at the end of each month, you see the interest is accruing for 30 days. What I do is I break that up into 4 payments. So I set it up, I automate it, and I would do, say,
Mm.
$55 a week. I'm not going to miss $55 a week, right?
Mhm.
It's a pizza and a beer, right? For
Mhm.
$55 a week, right? So by doing that, what's happening is you're crunching down the interest. So it's only accruing for 7 days and then it resets. And
Mm.
you'll pay that debt off a lot faster. And the other thing is with your mortgage. What I do with our mortgage is we pay it bi-monthly. So, or say bi-weekly. Bi-weekly. Every 2 weeks, we're making half of a mortgage payment. That alone is going to it's going to cut off about 7 to 8 years off your mortgage debt. So those are two simple strategies that people can use that doesn't require more resources. It's just a different way to take advantage of reducing the amount of interest you pay.
Well, I love those strategies, and I think those are fantastic ideas. And I know that we're talking a little bit about kind of comfort here,
Yeah,
and maybe your risk. And I
risk is
think that leads
important.
us to step number 6, right?
Risk is important, and the sooner you start planning, the less risk you have to take to grow that money. As you get closer to that the retirement window, you might have to increase the risk for those returns to get you there. So step 6 is about assessing your risk tolerance. And, we've talked about this on other podcasts, Jaclyn, where I say that risk tolerance is a sliding scale. There's
Mhm.
times when you can be a little bit more aggressive because you have low unemployment, low inflation, the strong earnings, profits are good, and returns are just easy to come by. And then there's times where you go through economic uncertainty where you want to be a little bit more conservative. And so understanding your risk tolerance allows you to balance that, right? You may want to consider shifting to a more conservative portfolio as you get closer to retirement. Now, a lot of people will use what they call target date funds in their 401k plans. And those target date funds are designed to do exactly that automatically. So let's say, for example, I was retiring in 2030, and I've been using my target date fund for the last 15 years. The early part of that fund is going to be more aggressive. It's going to be more stock and equities focused. And it's going to slowly transition to be more conservative as I get closer to the retirement date, that 2030. And that's so I don't lose money as I get to the end of that cycle. And you have to do the same thing, right? You want to make sure that your risk tolerance is in line with your portfolio allocations as you get closer to that retirement window. And that's really where a fiduciary, financial advisor, whether it's me or someone like me, can really help a client to balance that out during their planning
Mhm.
years.
Yeah, well, and I'll just use myself for an example here. I'm in my early 20s. And so my risk tolerance is going to be very different because I have many
Absolutely.
years to catch up, right? If we have a huge market downswing, or if I'm if whatever happens, I have a
Yeah,
lot of years and time on my side. And sometimes
100%.
when you're in that period between, a decade from retirement or less, you don't have time on your side. And so it's maybe, just making sure to check with your risk tolerance and
Yeah.
if it fits within your plan and your timeline, really.
Yeah, 100%. We always say that it's about time in the market, not timing the market. And
Yes.
you really want to avoid taking on excessive risk just to catch up as you get closer to that retirement window. So the sooner you start planning and balance those allocations with your risk tolerance, the smoother ride it'll be for you.
Yes, yes. Well, and it even seems like a lot of these steps are based on timing. And
Yes.
so what is finally our step number 7 here?
Yeah, I think step number 7 is also really important. And basically, Tiger Woods always had a swing coach. Barry Bonds had a hitting coach. Michael Jordan had shooting coaches. We should all have coaches to help us through our life cycle, whether it be for health or finance. So consult a financial services professional. You want to work with a fiduciary. The important thing about working with the fiduciary is, we're required by law to put your interest before our own. And that's important. You really want somebody that's looking out for you, that's making sure they're giving you the appropriate recommendations, not just on recommendations, but other things like taxes, estate planning,
Mm.
long term care, all the things that are going to affect you in retirement. Because one of the important things that we do as fiduciaries is, one, help you ensure that your risk is appropriate to your allocations. Number two, maximizing the tax efficiency of the portfolio. And then, of course, there's the long term planning alignment that you have to put together because, as I mentioned, retirement's not linear. Things are going to happen, right? And you're going to have to be able to make adjustments. And that's really where your coach, your financial coach and advisor is going to help you the best. I think if you look at different studies, they show that people that work with advisors get, a greater return on their investments than people that don't. And a lot of that has to do with managing those allocations during different economic cycles, whereas a lot of us have been conditioned to just set it and forget it, right? Just invest your money, don't look at it, and it'll be there. But
Mhm.
a financial consultant can really, really help you achieve those goals in a way that's a lot more tax efficient and really just smooth out that ride for you in retirement.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you brought that up, Ed, because the other thing that comes to mind here is that throughout these 7 steps that we've talked about,
Yeah,
we some of them are emotional, some of them are
absolutely.
financial. And the fact is that a fiduciary or a financial advisor sitting in front of you can bring all of those aspects of your life together in a plan, where they can incorporate the emotional side, where your goals are, where you want to be, but then they can incorporate the risk and your, financial side of things and
Yeah.
where you're at. And so, what do you think is kind of the common strategy in all of this?
Yeah. Well, it's important that you have enough saved to take care of not just your lifestyle, but the unexpected. We kind of use a rule of thumb. You want about 10 times your annual income by age 67. Okay. And that's just a rule of thumb. You want to get as close as you can to that. If you're a high income earner, it may be kind of hard to get 10x, but if you're in that average range of 100, say 75,000 to 150,000, you're going to need about 10x of your income to have a good, comfortable retirement. And it's important that people really understand it's never too early to start planning, and it's never too late to start now. Okay.
Mm.
So stay consistent. Again, it's not about perfection, it's about consistency and make adjustments as needed. And one of the things I want to do is make sure that everybody has an opportunity to uh, get my retirement planning checklist. And I'm going to make it available on the website, which is edgwealth.com. But you can also send me an email if you'd like me to send it to you directly. You can send me an email at ed@edgwealth.com or give us a call at the office, 916-359-2750. Again, that's 916 359 2750. And we'll make sure you get that retirement planning checklist so that you can start with these 7 steps to make sure that you're on track for a comfortable and enjoyable retirement.
Well, great episode, Ed. And just a reminder to our viewers and listeners, you're right. Start today and start
Yeah.
somewhere. Whether it's looking at your account balance, whether it's looking at what your goals are, just starting somewhere to figure out where to move from there. And I love this. I love that you made it practical into 7 steps. And I think number 7 with consulting a fiduciary or a financial advisor is my favorite.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Ed. And that does it for this episode of The Wealth Shepherd with our host, Ed Quinnell.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Jaclyn.